What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel, check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to react to a statement that Jay Williams made about Charles Barkley. And he basically kind of took the opposing argument against Charles Barkley by saying that LeBron James, because LeBron James is so special, that it is he's uniquely qualified to be a player slash GM, right? And I think that, in my opinion, when you take away from what your gift is, and LeBron James' gift is playing basketball, the GM, just because you're a great basketball player, in my opinion, don't mean that you're a great GM. And so he compared LeBron James' decisions as far as he called LeBron James almost like Red Auerbach, right? So what's the difference between Red Auerbach putting a super team together and LeBron James, when he put a super team together, LeBron gets criticized, right? And so it's not the super team, it's the fact that you take away from, if you're LeBron James, you take away from your competitiveness, right? If Red Auerbach is putting a team together, the players are still expected to perf- perform to the best of their ability. But anytime a player put a team together, then the team, the player is putting the team together based on a skill set or something that he's lacking, right? And so that's what James did, right? When he went to play with Chris Bosh and he didn't have a low post game, right? And so he don't need a low post game now or develop a low post game because Chris Bosh has a low post game. That's his job. He don't need to develop an outside shot or a jumper. Why? Because you had Mike Miller and guys around LeBron James who could shoot the jumper. So and that type of attitude and that mentality don't allow for the player to be the best player that they can be. It don't allow for that type of development. Whereas though if you're developing your game, or if those decisions are made by a general manager and the player is just focusing on being the best player that they can be, you're not so much worried about what skill somebody else is going to bring to the table, because the best player on the team is usually somebody who can do a little bit of everything, like does everything well. Somebody like Kobe, could rebound, Kobe could play defense, besides scoring, and so and Kobe had he had a back to the basket. He could play with his back to the basket, and so, but LeBron James never developed those skills, right? So that's the difference that Jay Williams never, he never speak about. And so let me play his statements, come back and give some more of my input.
People treat player agency as if it's less legitimate than front office agency. So when Red Auerbach finds a way to stack a team, he's exceptional. He's a genius. When Brad Stevens does it, he's a visionary. When Jerry West does it, he's such an incredible leader. But somehow when a player kind of takes in his own agency to do that for himself, then it becomes a character flaw. And I think that's the flaw overall in the argument. Like this is a different time and an age where players feel as if they're bigger than the franchise. It's the way people follow the game. And I think LeBron James is one of the rare few that, because of his agency and because of the power that comes along with being LeBron James, that he can pick and choose and kind of skew the rails in the direction he wants. And I don't think that's a character flaw. I think it's just the genius of LeBron being a GM and being the player.
Yeah, I think that I just think that things are done for a reason, and there are layers and there are levels to things, right? And so that's the purpose of having GMs, allowing the GM to do their job. I always thought that Giannis playing in Milwaukee, Giannis affected like who was on the team when he was in Milwaukee. His brother was on the team. When Giannis wasn't happy with a coach, they got rid of the coach. You know, and I think that just took the focus away from Giannis being the best basketball player that he could be. Once the Milwaukee Bucks won that championship, I think they won it in 2021. once they won it, I thought that they were going to at least, be always be in the thick of things because Giannis is a great player, right? But they got rid of the coach that led them to their championship. I think his name is Budenhauser. They got rid of the coach. They got rid of Drew Holiday. Then they brought in the second coach, Adrian Griffin. Then they got rid of him. They brought in who else they bring in? They brought in Dame Lillard. That didn't work out because they're like, well, Giannis is going to need more scoring around him. And so when a player starts to try to like I said, to be the general manager, that's when things go wrong. And then that's when players really their focus on something. You take their focus away from being the best basketball player that they can be. A player has to get a coach that they really trust and believe in and buy into that system. I don't care if you Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan. All of those guys had great coaches, and they had coaches that they they respected and coaches that they trust. I mean, you can't really think too much about Isaiah Thomas without thinking about Chuck Daly. And then, you had KC Jones. You thought about, Larry Bird, KC Jones, right? There was respect there and there was trust there, because the mission was the same for both of them, but they had different jobs, right? The coach is his job is different from the player, and the general manager, right? So everybody had a job, a different job. It's just so obvious to me that LeBron James being a general manager just never really worked for him. Look at the decision LeBron James made to bring Russell Westbrook to the Lakers, right? And when that didn't work, LeBron James didn't want to accept any of the blame for that. So I think that players should really stick to playing, especially I just think they should stick to playing, and don't try to be the GM. Don't try to be the coach and all that stuff, man. If LeBron James had made moves on a team and then he would have like a 10-0 or not even a 10-0 championship, a finals record. Say if LeBron was like 8-2 in the finals, then that is to me, that's all right. LeBron James knows what he's doing as a GM. He's getting rid of coaches. He's bringing players in and he's making moves. That's genius. But for 40% and to try to put him above Michael Jordan with a 40% win rate. Well, Michael Jordan was like, all right, I'm gonna let Phil Jackson is our coach. I'm gonna let him coach. I'm not gonna get in his way. I'm not gonna disturb anything. Reinsdorf and what was it? Jerry Reinsdorf and Jerry Krause. Those guys was the GM and the owner, right? For the most part, Michael Jordan really didn't get in their way. Remember, the Chicago Bulls traded Charles Oakley, and him and Michael Jordan was really close. I can't see a team today trading like somebody that LeBron James, like getting rid of Bronny James or getting rid of a coach that LeBron James handpicked. That wouldn't go over well. But Michael Jordan, they got rid of the Bulls. Mike didn't like it, and Mike got over it and went on to win 6 championships, right? Steph Curry, he wasn't really happy about Golden State getting rid of Mark Jackson. He got over it, because it wasn't for him to say. Ownership decided that, they didn't want Mark Jackson there for whatever reason. And so Steph Curry as a player just had to get over it and had to focus on him being the best player that he could be. It's in my opinion, that's why Steph Curry has 4 rings with the Golden State Warriors, because he did his job and the coaches did their jobs and the general manager did their job, and so you can't have Steph Curry. And I know a lot of people say, well, anytime we make a decision on this team, we're going to run it through Steph Curry. We're going to run it through our best player. And to a certain extent, you want to consider what how the players feel about it. But the bottom line, when you're the coach or you're the GM, it comes down to your decision. and or it should come down to their decision. And teams that allow their players to be their GMs and to me, I think it's just really it takes away from the player. They lose focus, and then that's why you have situations like LeBron James are 40%, 40% championship winning percentage, right? Compared to all the other greats who won the majority of their championships. They won more than they lost for the most part. When you talk about Magic, Kobe, Mike, a Bird won more than what he lost, so how can you call that genius when LeBron James hasn't had this, the success that they had, so that's to me, I just thought that Jay Williams, just, in my opinion, just really caught kind of lying and fudging the truth. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like, subscribe. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, man, I'm gonna check y'all out in the next video. Peace.